Great, here we go then. Lovely. Now to introduce on my show, got a band member, the lead singer from an indie band called The Horn. It's good to have you back with me actually, because I do remember interviewing you a few years back. We've got Johnny P. Taylor. Welcome to my show. How are you this morning?
Dan, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm caffeinated, ready to go. It's really nice to see you again. And it was 2 years ago we were saying, wasn't it?
That's
2023.
right.
Yeah,
Brilliant. Well, how are you today?
yeah, good. I think I sort of we're all very very busy preparing for the first show tomorrow for our tour with the Boomtown Rats. So it's sort of all systems go. All the pistons are well oiled and moving, and we're just trying to sort of tie up all of the logistics that enable us to go to Nottingham and start off our tour with a bang. And yeah, feeling very excited, a little bit stressed, and but also kind of you're grateful to be doing what we're doing in October. It's a really busy October for us.
That's good to hear. So one of the reasons I invited you on my show was to talk about your latest single, and then bit shortly after your new tour as well. But
Yeah,
for some of those who didn't listen to my previous interview with you, how did you
yeah.
kind of come up with the band's name, The Horn? Was it a love of instruments such as trombone or tubas?
Exactly. I think a lot of people would probably assume that it might have brass in it. We do sometimes have brass in the songs. I think it was actually our bassist Nick who founded the band originally, and we didn't really have a name before that. And then he suddenly came down into the studio in Baker Street and suddenly said, "It's the horn." And I'm not sure whether that was from a French horn, or like just him sort of thinking something that's a little bit out there, a little bit sort of unforgettable. And of course, we've had lots of eyebrows raised and lots of people chuckling, and some people seeing it, uh, hearing it in a more innocent way. So it tends to be a bit of a talking point. I remember actually going up to our label offices in King's Cross and sort of seeing our lovely manager Richard, and he sort of sat in the chair and sort of went, "So you're really going to call it the Horn?" Sort of. So we were, but I think Nick was quite decisive about that, and it kind of just stuck. And there you go.
It's a good name because it's straight to the point. The Horn.
Yeah, it doesn't really require any other pronunciate. It's just a very simple name. So I think kind of you can then hopefully hang lots of meaning upon it, and not just sort of connotations, but also the music as well. I think can then start to become associated with it. Hopefully,
Very good. And I better ask, what are your roles each in the band? Like
yeah,
how many are in the band? Of course, you're the lead singer.
yeah. I love that. A simple, pure question, from Dan. Yeah, I am the lead singer and I play guitar and do a fair amount of the writing, and then Nick, who founded the band, he plays bass guitar. He does a little bit of backing vocals, and he also writes a lot of the material. Danny is also a sort of a very important member of the writing team, and he is an audio engineer himself. But when he's not playing in the horn, but he's also lends that skill to the band, which is really lovely. And he runs a studio, which is sort of where the band was founded. And he plays lead guitar and sings backing vocals as well. And then we've got our friend Alex, who was playing in another band with me and Danny previously, and he drums, occasionally does a bit of arranging. And then there's Ed, who's plays keys and sings backing vocals as well. So it's quite a harmony, thick setup. And Ed's a front man of his own function band as well. So it's a lot of sort of different skills coming into one group, which is really quite rich, and it feels like there's a lot of experience, even though we're quite a new band.
Sounds like one big happy family then.
Yeah, it usually is. Yeah, we take the mick out of each other, and it is like a family now because we've been together 5 years now, I should say.
Cool. And next question for you. You have a shiny brand new single out called Something You Forgot. Something You
Yes,
Forgot.
which you didn't forget. Yeah.
Would you say it's like a real indie anthem?
I would, yeah, that's a generous title for it, and I'd say this one really is, and it's something Danny and I wrote um, together in Baker Street, and then Nick added a second verse. Actually, it's about a night out in Peckham. That Danny used to live there, and I went out with him and our friend Sam Delves, and we ended up being just a little bit worse for wear the next day, if you can, read into that. And there was a moment where I dropped an entire pint of beer onto a bouncer's foot whilst maintaining perfect eye contact. And that just made it into the first verse. And we sort of laughed about that. And then Nick kind of added his own night out story in the second verse. So the two verses are one night out and then another night out combined. So yeah, it sort of has a nice emotional feeling for us as a band. So it's fun to sing that one on stage with the boys because it really did come from a real story.
Mm. How would you describe the horn's sounds? How do you think they have adapted over the years, with like new technology and everything?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I'd say I was just explaining that to someone earlier, and I think it's sort of Danny and I, when the band was being founded, Danny and I were listening to a lot of Tame Impala and enjoying the kind of modulated chorus effects on guitars, big reverbs on vocals. And so for lovers of Tame Impala, you'll hear those type of sounds in his first album, In a Speaker, and then in Currents, which he won the Brit Award for, which is really influential on a lot of bands in Europe, I think, and America. And sort of quite big, distorted melodic bass lines, and then like um, very reverby sections, which suddenly hit you like a kind of emotion. And I think Kevin Parker was really good at doing that. So we drew a lot of influence from him, but then Nick has this kind of punk influence because back in the day, Mick Jones rented out his flat from the Clash, and Nick was sort of close to some of the members of the Clash, and so yeah, in answer to your question, I sort of say there's that kind of psychedelic indie sound with a bit of strokes from Danny. The vocal, I was always inspired by Tracy Chapman and Paul Simon, so I quite like smooth vocals. And then in general, it's sort of like a melodic psychedelic indie sound, but then with a bit of a punk edge coming through. Um, and in terms of new stuff, I mean, yeah, we don't use AI to write our songs or compose them. We're still organic and analog in that sense. There's an awful lot you can do as an engineer nowadays with new software, which is powered by all of the new um, overlords, the AI overlords. So yeah, I mean, I think it's about marrying an older influence with a new sound,
Mm.
and seeing where that takes. This has got a bit poppier. It's probably our latest single. You could liken to a more sort of, I don't know, Catfish and the Bottlemen sound, that kind of thing, like an indie pop.
Yeah.
Um, it's more of an anthem, that one.
Mm. And
Um,
do you feel like indie music was quite prominent in the 2000s? Um,
yeah,
do you think it's making that comeback, especially with students as well?
I think so, and I think it's about. There's a band I love called Cry Sometimes who are from Brighton, and the um their sound is almost like Avril Lavigne again. Like it's almost like early noughties, and that really struck me. And I thought, yeah, the younger generation, I think are exploring that sort of like really expressive pop rock again. I'd certainly say that of Brighton. I can't speak to the rest of the country with much. I can't be that erudite about what they're listening to up north or in Birmingham, but I'd love to find out a little bit more. But I certainly think that guitar music um, never really dies. It seems to always have a resurgence. There's something about watching someone express their emotions with a guitar, whether that's a girl band or an old-fashioned, indie band with their black leather jackets on. I don't think that will ever truly die.
Mm. And what was the experience working in Baker Street? One of my favourite parts of London, actually. It doesn't
Oh,
seem like
good.
London. Like Marylebone. When you're
Yeah, you
Marylebone,
you oh you must come and visit us then in that case. Yeah,
that's my
for sure.
station, that is. But what was the experience like?
It's great. Well, that's really close to my own heart because actually my friendiversary with Danny, um, uh, for want of a less cheesy word, is coming up next week. We've known each other for 10 years, and I met Danny in a cinema in London in Leicester Square, and then we he brought me into his a studio he runs in Baker Street, on a lovely cobbled street just off, sort of 2 minutes from the tube station, 2 minutes away from the Sherlock Holmes Museum, and all of that stuff. Um, and yeah, you sort of go underground, and he's got a lovely. He's just redone it, and it was always very nice. And he's got a lovely little suite with an SSL desk, and a live room, and now a new sort of kitchen area, which he's really proud of, and he's really worked hard on that for many years. And that's initially where he brought Nick down to compose some songs together, some of Nick's old songs.
Will.
And yeah, so he brought me in as a session singer for that, but I was working with Danny in Baker Street before that. And so yeah, it's a lovely little space.
On to the tour now. You're doing a tour here in the UK, supporting the Boomtown Rats.
Yeah.
Is Bob Geldof still lead singer, or is it so has the lineup changed?
So Bob is still lead singing for that. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to catching up with him and seeing how he's feeling about the tour. I think it's just a real honor to be invited to play that. And it's yeah, we're excited. Our first show is tomorrow in Nottingham, and then our second show after that, immediately the next day, is in Birmingham Symphony Hall. So shout out to Birmingham.
Lovely venue the Symphony Hall is. And I was going to ask you as well, what was the feeling like when you got the news?
It was incredible. We got an email, and we were like, okay, 7 shows with the Boomtown Rats. Couldn't quite believe it. It was pinching ourselves. And of course, Sir Bob Geldof, legend, Live Aid, done so much for the music industry. So looking forward to um, sort of contributing to their night, because they will play at around 8 o'clock, and then they'll play a half an hour documentary to the crowd, and then they'll play. So it's almost like, we're the first support, then their documentary is in the main support slot, and then they'll play. So it's just us and them, and that will be really special. And particularly for Nick as well, who founded the band, and he would have seen the Boomtown Rats back in the 80s. So I think, it's a really special one for him.
And onto the tour, will there be like merchandise where people can like purchase, CDs or t-shirts?
Yeah, we've got vinyl. In fact, actually, the laptop that I'm using to record this is sat on top of a box of vinyl of our first album called People Like Us. And we just had a new tour edition t-shirt printed in all sizes. So we'll try and fling some of those out into the crowd.
And you mentioned when I introduced you on the band members, it seems like you really gel the chemistry. How essential is it to have that quality when you're on tour performing as a group?
Oh, it's absolutely essential. And I think it's hard to go on tour with a bunch of lads. You're in a van, you're lugging equipment together. It's hard to not bond with them, because I think you sort of have to on one level, but we all are really friends, and even our tech team, a couple of them, are really good friends of ours, and one of our front of house is a dear friend of mine I've known most of my life. So it's really special, and it's I'd say it really helps. I think that's a really good question you've asked. It really helps when you're actually on stage, because although we are professional musicians, who you're supposed to be able to play with anyone really once um, you've been given the gig and you practiced it, and it's like, regardless of whether you've just met someone for the first time or whether you've known them all your life, you still need to be able to produce the goods on stage. But actually, it really does help with the chemistry, being able to turn to someone you've known for a long time and sort of play a guitar, looking at them and feeling the song with them. It is a special thing.
What do you find most rewarding about the touring process?
That's a really good question. I'd probably say it's not even the applause. It's probably knowing that we've done a good show of just spending so much time rehearsing, and sort of thinking, right, we smashed that one, and kind of in the van sitting sitting with the guys and being like, "Oh, that one went well tonight," even the stuff that goes wrong is part of the reward. It's part of the story. Um,
And
yeah,
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, where's best for people to follow your website for tour dates and so on?
yeah, sure. You can go. I think you can type in the Horn to Google and you'll find our website. And yeah, we've got the single "Something You Forgot" coming out tomorrow, which is Friday.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining me on today's show. Just to find out a little bit more about yourself, the band.
Yeah,
I'm joined by Johnny P. Taylor on my syndicated radio stations and podcasts on the Danny Cern Overflow show and syndicated show here in the UK. Thanks for joining me. That is Johnny from the Horn.
thank you.